Baxie's musical podcast.
Resistance is useless!
First of all, welcome to the 200th episode of Baxie's musical podcast. You've happened to stumble across a really good episode, one with what I think is one of the finest songwriters alive, Thomas Walsh, formerly of the band Pugwash from Ireland. If you followed along this podcast for the last 199 episodes, and you're probably aware that this is his third appearance on this podcast. Only one other person so far has been on the podcast that many times, and that was Cheryl Pavelski from Omnivore Recordings. Now, Cheryl and I have been friends since we went to college together, and I bring her up because in 2014, it was Omnivore that was the first record company to distribute his music here in the States, including the amazing compilation A Rose in a Garden of Weeds, and then his album Play This Intimately as If Among Friends. Both of those records spotlight what I've been saying about Thomas for years, and that is this. Thomas Walsh isn't just a gifted songwriter. Thomas Walsh is something far better. And as I've said before, it ain't just me saying this. Thomas Walsh has been praised by some of the greatest songwriters alive, like Ray Davies of the Kinks, Brian Wilson, Jeff Lynne of ELO, Andy Partridge from XTC, who once said, at their best, Pugwash are almost Beatles-like in their greatness. They are just that good. And I swear to you, after purchasing all 7 Pugwash albums and both of his collaborations with Neil Hannon with the Duckworth-Lewis method, that quote is not an exaggeration. He is simply one of the most underrated songwriters that I have ever heard, with albums loaded with some of the greatest pop songs that I've ever heard. In 2017, Pugwash released their final album, Silver Lake, which was produced by Jason Faulkner, who has also been on this podcast a number of times as well. It's taken 6 years, but Thomas Walsh has just released his first official solo album entitled The Rest is History. This is a record that boasts contributions from Joe Elliott from Def Leppard, Dave Gregory from XTC, Neil Hannon, Michael Penn, and several others. I should also point out that portions of the album were recorded at Abbey Road Studios in London. And to be completely honest with you, as great as his earlier albums and songs have been, the new record is arguably the strongest record of his career. And I wish I was bullshitting you, but I'm not. And so it is always a pleasure to welcome back my friend, Thomas Walsh, formerly of Pugwash, on Baxie's musical podcast.
Look at the bloody head on me. You hear me?
I hear you loud and clear. How you doing?
Good. Let me just set this up. I'm having me breakfast and it's 4:00 in the afternoon. I got boosted yesterday and the flu vaccine. So I had a really good sleep, but I'm feeling a bit slightly discombobulated. Matt Berry sending me messages. We're having a discussion about the Beatles at the moment.
Are you really? Well, I can understand why.
But we're discussing A Hard Day's Night. He wanted to know about I'll Cry Instead and When I Get Home. Fillers as they call them, but I don't. I think they're all great. But I said to him, what's the one thing about Hard Day's Night that's unique as a Beatles album? So can you answer that, Mike?
Well, isn't it the first album where every song they wrote?
Exactly, Mike.
That's it. That's what I thought. Yeah, I thought that's what it was. Actually, one of my favorite Beatles songs is on that one. No one ever plays it. No one ever talks about it. But The Night Before, I think that's like one of my favorite songs by the Beatles.
That's on Help.
Well, then I stand corrected.
You were doing so well, Mike.
And then I fucked it all up. Oh, well, what are you going to do?
No, I thought you were going to say I'm happy just to dance with you because I love that fucking song. No.
Listen, that period of the Beatles is kind of like it's like the sweet spot of the Beatles for me. It's like, it's like not quite the middle and not quite the end. It's like just as things are going, Hard Day's Night, Help, and then maybe Beatles for Sale. I kind of like that pocket that they were in.
Love Beatles for Sale.
Yeah, it's a great record. and it kind of gets forgotten about because the next 4 albums were so damn great. But
Great record. And to me, like I was saying, Beatles would say it, it's like, what made them so great was that every album had something going on that, another one didn't. So even with Help, which is a classic soundtrack album, really, it still had Yesterday. It had an iconic song for the ages, even amongst all the other great songs anyway, of course, including Help. But Beatles for Sale was, it's all about even the cover and the artwork, isn't it, with that record? It's the thing that makes that one even more appealing than most, because it's one of the greatest ever um, visual albums, I think. The way you get the gatefold, the inside going in,
yeah,
all the famous Robert Freeman pictures, and it's just iconic. It's just magic,
it's funny. The first time we met, you were doing a show it was a house show in Westport, Massachusetts, at Rachel and Wayne Cabral's house, and they were playing one of the episodes of The Beatles Get Back.
Yeah.
And you walked into the room and just and told everybody to be quiet, not to ruin the ending. And it was just like it was so cool to see you in that moment where you have such respect and admiration for what they did that you didn't want to see too much. You wanted to kind of absorb it all on your own.
Yeah, and if you remember, which you have done perfectly, I had left for that trip on it's literally probably, is it 2 years ago today? And I'd actually watched the first 2 episodes before I left. And I literally watched the second episode the day I was flying. But of course, they came out on, 3 separate days. And of course, the last one was the rooftop gig. And that was the one I was just couldn't wait for. I was so looking forward to it. But I had to leave on that second day. And when I walked in to, they had a massive screen, and it was playing the rooftop. And I went, knock that off. Knock it off now. Because how are you supposed to concentrate anyway with that on? And you're waiting to see it for 50 years, in that quality, in that full context. And I mean, to me, the greatest moment there's so many great moments, but I got so excited at 50 whatever years of age. I thought I could never get that excited again. But when they followed, because it cuts off on the film when they start to go downstairs after they get stopped. And of course, from the day one I heard this was coming out, I said, will they have footage of them going down the stairs and just going down to the basement to listen and all? Oh my God, they had everything. And they followed them down the stairs, and they went down to the basement where they're all buzzing after listening to the playback. And oh God, it was just, I couldn't have been more excited. Yes. But should we start officially?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I got the record, and I got it on time. And Thomas, I own everything you have. I've much of it on vinyl, nearly all of it on CD. I don't know how you do this. I don't know how you continue to just create freaking magic. This record is as good, if not better, than anything you've done. And I know it's taken
Thanks a lot, mate.
It's taken an awful lot of effort and a lot of sweat and time to get this record finally out. But I got to tell you, Thomas, it's amazing. It's just
thanks, man.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. Well, I mean, can we just end now? I don't want to ruin it now by talking about it.
No, I'm not going to let you get out that easy.
That's very kind of you. Yeah, it did take there was a massive gestation period, really, and curation have been marvelous. They've taken on something that they didn't have to take on, but in fairness, when I initially spoke to them, I said, look, I don't ever speak about money with records, because I don't, and I never expect to earn off labels and stuff like that, which I don't. But I says, all I need you to do is, can you fulfill the pledge that people very kindly, did to make me make this record, to help me make this record and everything. And they said, yeah. And, they didn't quite know the task they were taking on in a way, but they've been brilliant. And it is a little cottage industry, and a little, it's a very small setup with fans and friends that run it. And, as well as Brent, the owner and head. But so at this stage, about 80 to 85% of people have got their pledges on the official release date. Some will obviously be delayed, which I believe mainly England because of Brexit and because of the troubles and the struggles that you had to go through to post stuff to England. Even internally in England, it's just a bit of a mess. So we have a guy in England who's helping out with getting stuff out there and all, which is brilliant. That's really essential. So it's all been, and of course there was times when I thought it was never going to happen anyway, and I'd recorded it and it was sitting there. I did it. Something came up in my memories a few weeks ago from about a year ago, where I just took a picture of the hard drive sitting in the press with all the cups and the saucers and the tins of soup, because that's where it was. I said, if anyone wants to know the latest update on the album, there it is. It's in the cupboard. Because it was, and then a guy Massey was a massive help getting it mixed and mastered. Neil Hannon helped out a lot. And then it was Paul Rock at Wild Honey who said you should talk to the guys at Curation. And, the label thing didn't worry me. I luckily had some really good relationships with people that I would have loved to have released a record, including Low Jinks in the UK, who I loved. And I'm not speaking for them, but for me, lockdown and other things, life and stuff hit them a bit harder than most. So I actually didn't want to impose myself onto the Low Jinks as a friend. And they were very kind about it. They said they'd still, they could still do it. But I just got that feeling, So I spoke to Brent, and straight away we were talking about the Notorious Brothers album and, all the good stuff. So we got on really well, and we have got on really well. I mean, there's obviously been bumps in the road because I'm a fucking artist, and I hate even saying that, but at times, I can just go, why the fuck isn't, it lasts for about 30 seconds, but when you're talking to people you've only known for about 6 weeks, they can kind of go, who have I got into bed with here? What the fuck? So we've had a few moments, but nothing that makes any difference to anything. They love the record, and I love what they've done, to help it get out there and what they're still doing. So hopefully have some patience is all I'm saying to people as well.
When we talked last year on the podcast, and we talked about you recording the record and some of it recorded at Abbey Road. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But when you recorded it, you said to me that you even then believed this is maybe one of the best things you've ever done. Now that it's out, and today was the official release date, now that it's finally out there and off your plate and off your shoulders, there's got to be this amazing sense of relief, maybe fear or hesitation. How are you feeling after it's finally out on streaming and available for people to pick up?
Well, I'll tell you what, straight off, did I actually say those words? It's the best thing I've done, because it so doesn't sound like me.
Well, you said
did.
What you said was, it may be the best thing I've ever done, and I had to listen to it again to make sure that I didn't mess up that quote. But
no, that sounds more like me. It may sounds more Irish to me.
Yeah, it was. It probably wasn't as definitive as that, but it was saying, what we've come up with is something pretty special.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm the man who wrote a song called "This Could Be Good." I couldn't even say this. Like Americans, if an American released that song, it would be, "This is amazing," And so, to be honest with you, but I probably did, because in fairness, I really felt, and I still do, that it is a special record. I'll tell you what's amazing. I didn't believe the songs were up to my standard when I demoed them initially, or when I wrote them. I thought it was just a bit of a same old, with me. And I wanted to do, I wanted in my heart to do a few different things. And I suppose something like This Is My Fortress, it was me trying to do something different like that in a way. But I always end up just saying to myself, why try reinvent the wheel? Because and people often say this about bands, and about people like me who make this kind of music. Um, oh, it's still it's classic pop, and it's still like as if that's just easy to fucking do. Now, I'm not trying to say it's hard to do. It's what I do,
Right.
but I hate the way that's just thrown away when someone like Radiohead could make a record, and to be honest with you, it could sound like the Benz Part Two or OK Computer Part Two, and people would say it's innovative or it's amazing. And I mean, those records were innovative at the time, of course, in their own way, but ultimately they're still based in melody and all that kind of stuff. So it's just different genres get treated differently and get looked upon differently. And I hate that kind of just, it's just another collection of great songs, as if that's derogatory in a way.
Yeah.
So
Well, isn't that the point of making an album, a collection of great songs? I mean, isn't ultimately that what it's all about?
well, that's the thing I was brought up on, and I seem to think that a lot of people and a lot of people in the press say would just it's kind of like this is as if they could sit down and write fucking 12 songs with some melody in them and again, I'm not trying to get the violins out here. I'm just trying to make the point that I hate the way this genre is looked upon sometimes. So when I was kind of behaving like that, when I was saying this should be different, I should make this different, I just sat down one day and went, no, this is what I do. I write songs, and I'm proud of writing songs, and I'm just going to release an album with songs like I
Yeah.
always fucking do. But I want to make sure that they're done right and they're done well. And then when I demoed them, they really came alive, and I listened to them a lot, because you have to listen to them a lot at the demo stage. That's when you know your songs, or you get to know them, and then you don't listen to them a lot ever again. It's always the demos the writer listens to, I think.
And there's a couple of songs. I mean, on some level, there are some songs that sound like Pugwash, but there are some songs, like you say, that are different. Like you said, This Is My Fortress is very different. Another Lesson in Life, Love in a Circumstance. They're very different from the kinds of songs you've written before, but they're all fantastic. It's like, you're right. If writing a great song were so simple, everybody be doing it, but they simply don't. And yet, as I'm playing this for the first time the other day, there was a part of me that was having like this, and maybe it's because I know you. I don't know. There was part of me that was kind of having like this physical response to it, like an emotional response. And it was like there's just something about this particular record where I was so pleased that I had it, and so pleased that I feel already connected to it. Simply because you and I have, we've talked a couple of times, we've seen each other a couple of times. I'm just amazed by it, and I would think that to be proud of it would be almost an understatement.
Well, I'm not great at taking praise as much as I love it, but because it's a lovely thing, and there's so much shit in the world. It's nice to be nice.
Yeah.
But I had this thing. I spoke to Neil Hannon about this a while back, and this is a very Irish thing, I have to say. And it's kind of annoying, but I do feel there's an element of truth to it. I just think the longevity of me just sticking around, because all the stuff I've done before I've been very proud of, and you've liked a lot, and people like yourself have really liked, and then fans I've got over the years and stuff. And it's almost like it's either a time limit, like 25 years, or it's like your 10th album or whatever it might be. There's always one point in a career where someone has sustained a career, even though it's been very low level. There's always a point where, at some stage, everyone just goes, "This is the one." And I just thought, regardless of what this record was like, it may probably be the one. But I have to say, I backed it up because it's strong.
Yeah.
It's not just a collection of songs I wrote 20 years ago, and I didn't bother writing new ones, and I've rehashed them or whatever. And it's definitely all new and all fresh. It's funny, Another Lesson in Life was written for Silver Lake, but I knew when we didn't pick that one at the time, I knew it was going to be a strong song anyway. So that was the catalyst to get the new tracks going. I just kind of rejigged that. So I totally get what you're saying, and I love it because that's a real emotion anyway. It's not like people are being false about it. They are loving it, and they are saying really great things about it. But I had a strong feeling it might be the case just because I'm still alive. Like,
Sure. Yeah, it's not like you had the easiest year. I mean, the last time we talked, you were in the hospital, for crying out loud. So hasn't been an easy.
Jesus, I'm forever in and out of hospital, but I have things going on, but it's like I'm not saying it's nobody's business; it's people's business who I know and love,
Yeah.
all that stuff. But it what happens is, because we're always 18 in our heads, that never changes. I really don't believe I've aged. My brain has aged a single day since it got to the peak of its male mentalness, if you know what I mean. Like, so about 18, 19, 20, men are just starting to be sensible. Maybe. But from that day, it's just nothing's changed there. The whole body just goes to shit.
Oh yeah.
But the brain is still there. So once in my head, I was saying, do you know what? Yeah, the doctor's saying you have this, you have that. You can't do this, you can't do that. You have to live with that. You have to fucking take that off. You have to leave that over there. You might need one of them. Blah blah blah. 12 pills a day later. You know, that's just to keep you fucking waddling along on this earth. So that will just happen anyway. Because let's face it, we're all going there. And that's the way it is. So in our heads, if we stay young and happy and contented, we can just get on with things.
Yeah.
I might have to sit down the odd time when I'm walking through an airport because it's 25 minutes to get to the fucking baggage hold. But that's just life. That's fine. I can do it. I'll give
Right.
myself time to do that. And then it just life changes. It's like when you get older, things become different and so, I'm still excited and happy about this release, and I'm still very proud of it and stuff. But if you want me to be out there, like Mick Jagger, I'm not gonna be. I'm gonna be sitting in someone's home in a nice comfy chair, playing the songs for 3 hours, or stuff like that, or talking on podcasts. And that's enough. What can you do? There's
Yeah.
people out there that don't even go and play live. So I'm very happy that I can do that, and I love doing it.
Considering everything that you've been through in the last year, there was at one point online that you made this statement. I don't know how you feel about it now, but at the time you had almost threatened that this might be your last album. And I know you've written stuff since. Do you still feel that way? Does this seem like the last thing you're going to do, or there's just more inside of you?
That was very dramatic, wasn't it?
A little bit.
Statement. To be honest with you, and again, it depends on how you're feeling and what you've gone through. I mean, I may have just come back from 6 hours in the hospital and being told something quite disturbing, and then had to sit on a bus full of people in the obviously pissing rain because it's Ireland, and the bus is hot and sweaty, and everyone's stuck beside each other, and you're sitting there, and all you want is a cup of tea and get home. Then when you get in, the heating's not working, and you've run out of milk, blah blah, and then you pick your phone up and someone says, "Where's this fucking album? I've been waiting 6 months for it." And you just kind of go, "Look, this might be me fucking last one, so fuck off." That kind of, let's face it, a lot of famous quotes out there. John Lennon being a great example of mood swings. Mother of God, he hated everything in 1970. He loved everything in 1980. He would have loved everything, obviously, for the rest of his life, because John Lennon was that kind of person. They would have done Live Aid. They would have fucking released albums. They would have worked together again, Lennon and McCartney. It's just obvious.
Yeah.
It's just that, if you're going to get murdered, or you're going to have serious hospital stuff or serious personal stuff, it's going to dictate what you say and what you do. And I think when I said that, I definitely meant it, because it's too much fucking hard work.
Yeah.
Especially when you're going through life stuff as well. And, and money's always an issue with me, because all I earn is to get by. And I hate going on about it, but it's like I genuinely do gigs online to try and get some money, so I'll get some fucking shopping in. And that's great if I can do it. And fans are amazing. And I'm only surviving because of the fans. So around the time of an album, there's a little bit more work, which makes you relax a bit more. But typically, the Beatles released their last ever single, so I dropped about 400 fucking quid yesterday on Beatles variations, because it's the last single by them, and I'm a collector of vinyl, and of course I was going to do it. It would be like fucking, be like Magic Johnson not wanting to throw a fucking. Does he play basketball?
Well, he used to.
Yeah. Be like Magic Johnson getting a basketball on a basketball court live on CBS or something and saying, throw the ball, Magic, and him going, nah, fuck this. Of course he's going to throw it, you know? I mean, it's like, it's just things you do because it's natural to you. And me writing songs and collecting music and loving bands that I love, that'll never change. And let's face it, if we were to take them things away, we might as well just walk straight down the gangplank into the fucking grave. We've got nothing else. You know, we've got people around us who love us and all, but that's just wonderful in its very beautiful, you know, spiritual way. But we need those things. A man must need a shed to keep him sane, as Colin Moulding once said.
You got a lot of help on this record, and you've had people help you on previous records, but you've had this long standing relationship with Neil Hannon, between a couple of records and the Duckworth Lewis method, and there just seems to be a great deal of mutual respect between the two of you. That it's this constant collaboration. Tell me about that relationship with him and what makes it so fruitful for both of you.
Well, your question's very good. We just have fun. We get on great with each other. We're a kind of an emotional release for each of us because there's elements of Neil and his ways and his persona that I really like and I love hanging out with. And he's the exact same with me. You know, we can talk shit about football, soccer, and cricket and all those kind of great things and, silly videos and all the very normal stuff. But he really doesn't have a lot of people around him to do that with. And in fairness, I don't have a lot of people around me that wants to talk about Frasier or the reason why the Frasier reboot shouldn't happen, which is Neil's opinion. And my opinion is let's just watch it and see. I'm on the fence so far. It's okay. But, where's Niles? Let's be honest. But, I see there's a dog coming into today's episode. So there's a dog coming in. It's not Eddie, but it's a lovely looking dog.
Yeah.
But there's moments so far. But anyway, that's the kind of thing. See, we could just go off on a tangent about normal stuff so-called normal stuff. And then all of a sudden we go, but what about this A minor thing I did yesterday? And Neil would go, oh, that's really nice. And then I go, yeah, you just played something there. And then all of a sudden within an hour we have something. And that's a very lucky thing to have with someone, especially someone as brilliant and as musical a genius as Neil Hannon is, because he is, and he's written many hits and he'll write many more. And I mean, I'm going to state here now that, next year's Academy Awards should have a Neil Hannon track nominated because he's written these amazing songs for Wonka, the musical Timothée Chalamet movie, which is coming out I think it's December. And the songs are marvelous. And, so he's, going forever upwards because that's natural for him. He doesn't ever go backwards. And I love that with people. And I've done that myself just on a personal level. I've always thought that I've improved as I've gone along. XTC being a huge influence on that because I just thought every record they made was a huge step forward in either recording or songs or whatever it was. It was just always a step forward. They never took a step back. And of course, the great bands did that. The Beatles, for me, ELO did. But of course, if you look at it, really X-ray eyes, you'd see that Balance of Power certainly wasn't as good as fucking Out of the Blue. But, when you live through these records as well, when you're alive, when they come out, and when you go to the shop and buy them on the day, they all mean something special to you. So with Neil, it's that kind of special feeling. It's that fun. And we do get some good results, So hopefully it's not the end of our dalliances together.
You mentioned XTC, and in the past, you and I have talked a lot about XTC, and Dave Gregory helped you again with this record, and Dave has done a lot of things with you over the years. And the disappointing part about it for me is I talked to Dave literally 3 months before the two of you went into Abbey Road to record the string arrangements for this record, and I'm kicking myself like, how did I wish I had known that. But you want to talk about guys who you're surrounding yourselves with geniuses. This guy's pedigree when it comes to music is just it's so rich and amazing that I'm in awe of Dave Gregory every time I've heard him or talk or even interviewing myself. I love Dave Gregory.
Well, I think that should be the name of, I don't know, a book about all his fans, because I love Dave Gregory is the perfect title, because who doesn't love Dave? I mean, it's not that Dave can't say cunt or bollocks or twat or fuck off, because when he does, it's like watching George Martin say it. It's hilarious. And he's just a great normal guy in that respect. I keep saying normal. I hate that. We are normal, Bonzos. But I mean that in the way that there's always those phrases about don't meet your idols and don't meet all these things. And of course, they do apply to some people because it's true. You don't want to go out of your way to meet X because they're going to be the way they are. And then that's just the way it is until you get to know them. Say, but in my experience, 99% of the people I've met who I love, and I've been very fortunate to meet, are just such brilliant people. But then again, you get pulled in by their gentleness and their kindness and their friendship, and then you tend to forget how absolutely amazing they are as musicians, as arrangers, as just and you kind of get lost a bit. And it's great to get lost in a friendship ahead of an attribute.
Yeah.
It's really cool. But with Dave, it's just like Dave wasn't doing any more string arrangements because they are so fucking tedious and laborious and boring. And for Dave, he just wants to play the guitar. And Dave's just gone over into the 70 zone. Of course, he looks about fucking 45, but but the age, as we know, makes no difference. But what I'm saying is, he wanted to start, taking it down a notch and stuff. So things like string arrangements, just a lot of time, a lot of brain and stuff. And you want to be watching The Chase or something, or some fucking TV show where you're having just relaxing with a cup of tea, or playing, Cream, Good Boy, on vinyl while you have a cup of tea. And so but I asked him because, again, when you said 3 months beforehand, that probably, Abbey Road was probably not even thought about 3 months beforehand the way I work. So getting Dave on board to do the string arrangement and getting Abbey Road was probably that kind of time frame anyway. It's probably around 3 months. Because when I get things going and things can happen, I had a really great dear friend in New York who helped me out with that Abbey Road trip as well, which is very important. A guy called Steve Lorello, who's a bit of a kind of a unspoken star of this record in a way, because he helped out so much with that. But when I got Dave on board, I just said to him 3 or 4 times, I hope you're not doing this just out of kindness. And he goes, no, I love the track and I'm happy to do it. And when I heard that, it was just like, okay, great. And he got Barbara Gaskin to notate the thing out onto paper, because you have to have it onto official kind of music paper when you go to Abbey Road, and have it there on the stands for the players when they come in. And Barbara Gaskin I'm a huge fan of Barbara Gaskin. She had hits in the early 80s in the UK with a guy called Dave Stewart, which is not the Eurythmics Dave Stewart, but they covered It's My Party, things like that. And they were #1 hits. And she was always very sexy on top of the pops and stuff, the short skirts and the hair and all. So when I was an 11-year-old kid, I was like, oh. And then all of a sudden, Barbara is notating out and all these great things. Just when you meet these people, those things happen, and they're really wonderful things. And so Dave just did an immense job, but he also conducted on the day, which was fantastic to see him up on the podium conducting. We had 8 amazing players led by Everton Nelson, who's a very famous player and a huge session player, and he's just magic. I mean, he's just the guy was born to sit in Abbey Road and play the violin or viola or whatever, and lead a group of musicians. He's just a genius. And so having him in, it was only 90. We did it in 90 minutes. We did it in less than 90 minutes, to be honest with you. And we got it down. But we had a little chat. We had tea and the usual stuff. And people left. People could leave early, still get paid their full amount, and then we could go and add on some overdubs and have a look around the studio. And that's all. That's what Abbey Road is for me. It's getting the recording done because you're working with the best people in the best place in the world, and then you can have a little time because it will be done quickly, and then you have a bit of time to walk around and get people in and show them it and give them the trip of a lifetime, I suppose, around that studio. So I love it, and thanks Dave immensely for that.
I mean, to be there, and even with Dave, because you're talking about someone who is that talented and who does
Yeah,
appreciate your talent immensely. I mean, it has. I mean, I don't even know how you even absorb that. You're in Abbey freaking Road Studios. I mean, the place has a magic of its own, even in silence. I mean, it's just an
yeah.
amazing environment to be in and make music, even if it's just for 90 minutes.
Well, the thing is, it was initially, I've only ever been there because of the right reasons. So, I often say this about, millionaire businessmen, mainly Americans, Japanese probably as well, and, well, whatever, anyone. But they go in there and they film it and they play a Rickenbacker and they all go woo and all, and they pay top money and they walk in and walk out and it feels great, and it's still amazing. You can do stuff like that, I suppose, in this day and age, with things being uh, so important historically, So it is great to think that you can still go in there. um, I'm waiting for, Just Stop Oil to go in there under the moniker of a hip new indie band and throw orange paint all over Abbey Road. And that'll be the time when they officially end their campaigning because they'd be killed. But you know what I mean? It's like, what I'm saying is it's great that you can still do that, but the respect is there. But I went there musically in 2004 through the Section Quartet, who were great friends of mine, Eric Corfane, and Eric just did the strings on all the Def Leppard string album,
Okay.
and that's the amazing thing. I'm great friends with Eric for years, and Eric didn't even know that I knew Joe Elliott, and Joe didn't know that I knew Eric, and it was all very very much fun. But it's funny, this album Eric didn't work on any particular track, but Joe was on it. So
I,
but I digress. But it was originally because Grant Lee Phillips had a gig in London in 2004 that the Section Quartet were playing at, and he pulled it because of illness, I think it was.
mm,
And they found this out, but they were still going to go to London because they had to do a John Bryan session in Abbey Road, and like a string session for some movie. And they just contacted me at the time and says, "Look, we know you're looking for," because I just started with this new label and there was money around 1969 records. We were all friends, and he just got in touch, Eric, and said, "Look, we can get you Abbey Road Studio 2 pretty cheap if you want to do the strings, and we'll do the strings. We'll come in." So it was a Rose in the Garden of Weeds track and a few other bits and bobs, and of course Dave did the arrangements for them anyway. So Dave came down that time, almost 20 years ago now, and we had one of the greatest days, and it was for the right reasons. Um, it did look like an Earth, Wind and Fire session because I had everybody in the fucking. I invited everybody, and it's a bit stricter now, but I still got about 20 people in for last year's session, but they were all roadies. But so I'm there for the right reasons, which I love because it's cheaper than doing strings in Ireland. And B, it's the
really?
greatest place in the world. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and once you're in, they give you great deals as well. They're wonderful at Abbey Road. They really are. Great public relations as well. And
Mm.
it helps when you get off a plane and you go straight to Abbey Road like I did, and you bring 3 or 4 joint Toblerones for the girls at the reception and the guys at reception. That always helps because there's nothing better than being given a huge Toblerone.
No,
Let's
I
be honest.
agree. I totally agree.
Yeah, and so little things like that though I'm always thinking of because these are special days for me, and I don't ever forget where I'm from and the working class Dublin element of things, and the fact that there's really no musical history in my family, and it was just because I heard things when I was very young, and I went, "Oh my God, that means something to me," And then all of a sudden, you become what you become. So I still don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing or how I'm doing it because there's no real DNA there, but there's DNA from beautiful people and talented people who worked. My uncle on my mother's side was an amazing drawer. He drew cartoons for an Irish paper, and he was a brilliant sculptor and stuff like that. So there is an artistic bent But you wouldn't, not musically though.
Well, I'm going to ask you about that because I think we've touched on that before. You start playing music at a fairly young age, and at some point you realize, oh well, I mean, and with no, like you said, no real DNA in your family that's musical, but
Yeah.
at some point you realize, hey, wait a minute, I can do this too. I mean, was there a particular moment or a particular song that either you wrote or played to that you said, all right, this is it. This is where this is all going.
One thing that's always been in my mind, like as vivid as anything, is that when because I was a drummer, I loved to. So when I was a kid, I used to drum bang things and stuff. I banged a lot of things, but even without drumming, I was one of those mad. I suppose nowadays it'd be ADHD or whatever the hell they call it, and give you a pill. Thank God they didn't give me anything at the time,
Right.
because honestly, it must stunt whatever's going to develop in you. It must, and I'm very much against it. Only in the extreme cases, obviously, when you need help as a kid. But for me, I'd go to my auntie's house and grab the eggs out of the fridge when I ran in, and run down the back garden, and she'd run after me and say, "Give me the eggs," and then I just smashed them against the wall when she was 1 feet away from grabbing them. That kind of thing. I was just one of those. And my auntie used to bring me to the supermarket, so she'd actually tell me to push over the displays. So I'd run down the aisle and push over all the cans of beans or something. And she just got a great laugh out of it. So, I was one of those kids. So when I started hitting things, I could do it in time, which I noticed. And then I got really into, when I got mad into ELO was in the 70s, and Gilbert O'Sullivan, and, all those great. And of course, the Beatles came. The Beatles were always there. It's mad. They're like a spiritual force. You knew
Yeah.
they were there, but you just didn't bother with them. You had your own little band. You had your ELO, or you had your Kinks, or you had, they were just like, oh, they'll take care of themselves. I don't need to listen to them yet, and whatever. So when the 70s ended and I got really into the Beatles heavily after Lennon was murdered, because I went out and myself and my brother went out and bought an album a week of the Beatles in '81.
Hmm.
Just because when he died, we heard all this music that was incredible, on the radio. So
Right.
we're like, this is all them, this is all him, this is all whatever. So it was that kind of thing. So but I still wanted the drum. So we started to do get back sessions out in the shed, our shed in the side of the house, and I'd drum, and we'd start at 8 o'clock in the morning because we read that they used to start at 8 o'clock in the morning, all this bullshit. And but I love drumming. But then of course I got more and more into the songs and into the music. And one day I remember, as you asked about a particular song, I remember just going up to the back bedroom of my parents' house, probably about 1982, I'd say. And just because I'd learned some chords and I had a guitar, my brother's guitar, and I just started strumming it and I wrote a song. And Don't Let the Grass Grow Under Your Feet was the first line.
Hmm.
And it was C to G, it was C to G minor. So that was a good start. Now, there were two difficult fucking chords if you're a young guitar player, but I remember Don't Let the Grass Grow, or whatever. But earlier than that, I had done a song into a tape recorder, and I'd overdubbed. So I had put drums down, and then I played guitar and sang over it. But it was basically going back by the birds. It was just a remake of that. It wasn't.
Yeah.
I just basically took that tune. So when I started to write real songs, I have a cassette somewhere of those songs I wrote in the back room. I definitely have them somewhere, and it's just me on acoustic, and they're really awful, of course. But I'm glad I did them because they were the beginning of all this.
Well, I mean, yeah, a lot of people write songs. A lot of people write music. Not everybody writes as much great music as you have. I mean, there's some people that spend their whole
Oh,
lives if they stumble into one great song, they're lucky. I was putting together a Spotify playlist of your music just for the sake of having it, and then
Baxie's Spotify
yeah,
thingy.
yeah, and after adding almost 3 hours of music, I'm thinking, is there anything I forgot? Because there's a shitload of songs that I haven't even added to it yet, and it's just like I marvel at it because in the same way I marvel at like Andy Partridge because as his career
uh,
went on, his music became more sophisticated and more complex and better in a lot of ways. And when I hear you, it's like nothing's slowing down, even after 20 years of doing it. I mean, you don't have as many records out, but you hit more than you don't. And that's really something that I would think every songwriter would aspire to be at that
Well,
level.
well, again, it's your wonderful opinion, so thank you very much. I mean, when you mentioned Andy Partridge, it's I kind of that's when I kind of go, well, hold on a minute, just shut up, because I don't take easily to people who are genuinely innovative and just special. And
Yeah.
Andy's been doing it now for nearly 50 years, and officially, with Make It Music, 77, 78, first releases, and he continues, I mean, yeah, it is. There's a little, I hate using the word sad because I know what it's like when you're making music and you're making it on your own in a way, and you're kind of have to get it all together, and you get to a certain age when you just don't want to do a lot,
Yeah.
of that heavy lifting in your brain. But so I don't like using the word sad, but there's a little sorry element to Andy not making a record every couple of years or something because it's all there. But I just understand that he's just a bit lethargic or just a bit pissed off with all of it, because it doesn't give you a lot back as an actual business in a way. Do you know what I mean? And that's what it is. It doesn't really give you a lot back. The fans give you everything, but does anybody go out and do their job for somebody else? You have to do it yourself. Um, even a bus driver who's driving people around all day has to be enjoying what they're doing, or they're just going to drive off the cliff. So it's a tough one. But with Andy and myself, as I said, thank you so much for the comparison. It's amazing. But you know, I just get a burst every fucking 18 months, probably, maybe a little less, where everything comes out. So all the songs on this album were done in 2 weeks,
Hmm.
and there was about 15 or 16. And what happens is, for me, about three or four of them are like different, slightly different, but the same as another song. So there's three or four of them that are just the same song, but I've written them differently. So I end up either putting them together and making one song into a really good song, or scrapping them or leaving them aside. So in the end, I just wanted 11 or 12 usual stuff for an album. And when I got about 14, I just said, okay, let's just leave it at a nice amount. That they're all good songs. I could see how they'd work track listing wise, and so then you just off again, and you get the fans on board now because that's the way to do it, and they've been brilliant. So yeah, I did a couple of Jeff Lynne covers, which hopefully will come out as a record store date, 7 inch, I think.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I did an Idle Race cover with myself and Neil only, and I did it with the band then and all the people involved in the album. We did a great cover of What Would It Take, uh, Jeff's track on Armchair Theatre. So and they're really strong. What Would It Take was going to be on the album instead of To Be That Child Again, right up to the last minute. And I think it was Keith, someone involved, just said, Wally, you got to play with your own songs. This fucking song is great. And, that's a cover. And I kind of went, but I was kind of putting it on because it boosted up the poppiness of the whole thing. But then when you do sit down and look through it realistically, and you have to do it for the right reasons, I was happy to put my own song back in there. And of course, it becomes one of the most liked songs already. People are saying that's one of their favorite songs.
Yeah.
To Be That Child Again. And that's the weird thing. You never know.
One of the times that I saw you live, I think it was the first time, you spent a lot of time talking about Jeff Lynne,
Yeah.
who's kind of, I mean, I think here in the States, I think, some people just, hear Mr. Blue Sky and for whatever reason kind of think it's like it's a fluff song. I've never felt that way. I think Out of the Blue is one of the most brilliant records I've ever heard in my life from front to back. But he's another guy that, wrote that whole album in 2 weeks with this amazing burst of creativity. But his creativity isn't just limited to songwriting, just the way he has produced stuff and, the way he has arranged music. And I know you've had a really good, friendly relationship with him over the years. Tell me about Jeff Lynne and what he's really like.
Well, where do you start? I mean, when you have somebody on your wall when you're like 7, 8 years old, and when you join fan clubs and so their picture, their head, because it comes in, say, like a fanzine form or a newspaper. There was no internet, and TV appearances were so limited. There was 3 channels, 4 channels at most then in the 80s. And so seeing these people just in everyday life is a very special thing for your eyes. So if a picture of Jeff Lynne appeared in the paper, what would you do? You'd cut it out and you'd stick it in a scrapbook or whatever. And that's why people did those things. Well, I mean, we so desperately wanted the internet years ago. It's just that we never knew it was going to come,
Right.
because now I can spend days just going, oh, I'll Google Jeff Lynne, see what comes up. I'll just be loads of great pictures and articles, and I'm going, hey, and there I am. That's the end of my day. And that's another reason why you won't get 2 albums a year out of me, you know, Google. But so when you meet, when you get even, so somebody like him who was very, very, he was anti-publicity his entire career.
Yeah.
He hated it. He hated interviews. He hated TV appearances. He wasn't even a fan of live work, unless it was like during the peak time of his career when he did lots of it and made all his money, and then he could relax, and he did it very well. And Don Arden was a big help for him with all that stuff. As much as Don Arden is a dirty name with a lot of people. I mean, if there's no Don Arden, there's probably no Jeff Lynne and no ELO, really.
Yeah.
And all those kind of things. So during the time he had to work his bollocks off, he did. And he really did. And he gave us so many beautiful things. And I loved him. And I loved the fact that he didn't want to do interviews, even though I would have collapsed if he came on TV and started talking, because it would have been, oh, he's alive. Look at his mouth moving.
He certainly hasn't responded to any of my requests to do an interview.
No. And I don't mean that in any derogatory way. I know a few people who've been lucky to interview him. And, it's not an easy process either, because, but once he knows he's doing 2 days of interviews, he'd be brilliant.
Yeah.
But, just in general, it's going to be tough. So many book requests and stuff like that. And it's just, he just couldn't be arsed. And I know it comes from a really lovely place, because I could hear him saying, oh, tell them thank you very much, but, I couldn't be arsed. And that's the real answer you get from him. He's very real, and he's very honest, and he's very funny. And he loves the way people love, because he's a fan. He's still like me. He's a Beatles fan. That'll never stop. And he's a Roy Orbison fan, all these people. So if you sit down and talk about Jeff, about things like that, he'll just talk about those people for hours.
Yeah.
Like I did. And so that's never going to wait him. But, it is Jeff Lynne, upwards of 100 million albums, and pretty much, through his entire career with all these other artists, and, Grammys and whatever, and Lifetime Achievement and Hall of Fame and Ivan Novello's, everything. So he is a very respected and loved person. But I understand, when Homer Simpson said, is it Jeff Lynne to Lisa, in The Simpsons, about your favorite Wilbury? Homer was trying to be hip. You just knew that all the people on The Simpsons loved Jeff Lynne. It just, and it's like, and it permeates through all that stuff. But it's nice to see his revival in the last few years, because they were a dirty word for a long, long time. And stupidly so, just because Britpop and the 90s and the dance craze and all that kind of stuff. There was it's like punk with Macca and all that stuff,
Yeah.
I always say this as well, but, Mulligan Tour is the greatest punk record ever released. No, it is.
Yeah.
Because if you understand the ethics of punk, it's going against the norm. And when he released that, punk was the norm. And he released a fucking ballad with bagpipes, and that's punk. That's fucking punk.
Yeah.
And of course, I love the fact that nobody ever says that, because it's so wrong to say something like that. All the top journalists I know would go, "What are you fucking talking about?" And I just look at them and go, "That's why you are not as good as you should be."
Yeah.
Because that's a very simple thing to me. He went against the grain releasing that record, and that's punk. Do you not understand that? So
Yeah.
anyway, getting back to Jeff, he just did a lot of things back in the day, because that's what I was talking to you about at the start, because ultimately that's what he did the best. lots of strings, choirs, brilliant melodies, brilliant production, harmonies. That's what he did great. Why that's a dirty word or a bad thing, I don't fucking know. Because people like to think that something that is ramshackle and there's blood on the cover or there's fucking someone falling over, it's a little more real. Well, it's just bollocks, you know. I know that I'm not taken seriously in Ireland because of the music I do, but there's nobody in Ireland writing lyrics about real life situations like I am writing. And the ones that are selling them millions around the world talking about being depressed or having troubles, I know for a fact that they're not. So there's a lot of that thing where people just fall for the falseness of all that. But you won't get a song out of mine apart from the first two albums, maybe, or the Duckwood Lewis stuff, that isn't absolutely all real life sentiments and real life. Like We Knew on the new album is about a real life person and about somebody who died recently who I was, you know, great friends with and great personal friends with. And it's like, you know, it was alcoholism and it was abuse and it was all that kind of stuff. And that's a very, very real song. And the people reacting so far who listened to it either live, like I did the little tour in America recently, they were crying. It's a, and I'm very proud of that because if they're getting it like that on that level, well, then that's all I can ask because it is a real story. It is real lyrics. It's a melody I wrote that has a mournful feel to it because that's the way it is, and people are genuine reacting in a way when they hear that song, and I can't be anything more than proud. I don't want to make them sad,
Yeah.
but I'm proud. That's how that works for
Well,
me. And with Jeff, he did the same for me. He wrote songs that made me cry and do all that. So, when meeting him and getting to know him, special.
yeah. Yeah, but when music does that to you, when it puts you in that place where suddenly you just become open and vulnerable to it, that's a special thing, and it's a special talent to be able to write music that moves people to that level. So, like I said before, when I listened to the new record, there was part of that was doing that for me. When I saw you play this last time in Connecticut, there was a part of you that was doing it to me again, and it's kind of
Right.
been that way since I discovered your music, many years ago, and it's just been a delight to watch you create and get to know you a little bit too.
Well,
I'm really pleased by that.
well, thanks, Mike. It means a lot. And yeah, it's great to get to know you because you're very good at what you do, but you're also very knowledgeable and you know your stuff. But I apologize, it's been 6 years since Silver Lake, but I think a lot, we tend to forget, don't we? What was that thing? Oh, worldwide pandemic, lockdown. And we tend to forget there was 2.5 to 3 years
Yeah,
where we really couldn't do anything,
yeah,
realistically. And especially, when they say people in the more vulnerable categories, well, fuck me, there was a whole category just for me. So, I didn't want to be getting out there, going, way, they've just said we can go out today from not going out yesterday. I'm not an idiot. I know that, life was going to come and bite me on the arse very quickly. So I had to even let it go even longer than most people, and of course it's still out there. And I've been knocked sideways this year twice, knocked shit sideways by it. And so I was glad to get the booster yesterday, and I was glad to get my flu vaccine. Um, and I urge people to get it if they haven't.
yeah.
Um, because ultimately these things are ridding the world of this horrible thing. But we had so much, even I always think of Adam Schlesinger. I met up with Chris Collingwood recently, and that was a great moment because we all raised the glass straight away to Adam
Hmm.
because he went very early on. He got it really quickly, and COVID, and so all this kind of, and of course it has an effect on you anyway as a person on your head. So I didn't want to be sitting around writing songs about lockdown. I mean, that's not a very enjoyable thing to be doing. And I'm not a blues artist, so I wasn't going to do a blues album about lockdown. I can't go out, no, 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 no. I can't get my hair cut, no, no, no. It wasn't really going to work for me.
Yeah.
But in the end, I did do a bunch of songs just after the first big lockdown was lifted. So that maybe came on the back of that good feeling, but a lot of the songs ended up being quite dark, as they always are anyway. And some of them did reflect lockdown, which This Is My Fortress is a good example.
Well, Thomas, it's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how much I like the album. Again, I don't want to keep embarrassing you by it, and want to be
No, so thank you so much.
showering you with praise. But I wish you luck with this. I hope people discover what Thomas Walsh is all about.
Well, you people like yourself help immensely, and I don't just do these because oh yeah, I'll do this podcast forever. I want to do good podcasts and people who know their stuff and I don't turn down a lot of stuff, but sometimes you get people and you go, "Well, Jesus, I'd rather sit here and talk to the wall." So I'm very happy to do your show. I love your show, and I won't tell you that I actually got rid of Spotify again. I shouldn't say that, but I did. I just can't. I can't stand it. I don't use it. That's the thing because I love Apple. I love Apple Music, so I'm always on Apple Music. The quality is brilliant, and I love the setup. They don't have as much as Spotify. Spotify has everything, of course. But then I just go to YouTube now because I've decided to buy to join YouTube, whatever you call it, premium,
Right.
because it offers so much for me. I'm always on there as well, so I have to kind of cut down on all the things I have because 12, 13 quid a month, 10 times over,
Yeah.
places you don't even go to. It adds up, so I have to. So I will absolutely promote all of Baxie's podcasts, of course,
Wonderful.
but I won't be able to listen to them this time.
It's available other places than just Spotify. It is available on
Yes,
Apple, so you can get
it
that
is.
too.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So I happily listen to it there. Yes,
Great.
of course. But no, just to get back to that, you're a real friend and a really big supporter of the music. So that means a lot. And of course, you're in America, which is my home really for the people who accept me.
Yeah.
Anywhere in the world who accepts me is my home in a way, because it's beautiful to get a letter from Singapore or from New Zealand, which I do, and people buying pledging for the album all over the world. I love them all, but America is the place I travel to play to earn my living, So I very much love the place for lots of reasons. And it's always great to come and see you and see the
Yeah.
people like that, and especially when they're playing a house, sitting in a nice chair with a cup of tea. It's great, It is enjoyable, isn't it?
You know what? I love both of those shows. The one at
Yeah.
Wayne and Rachel's house, I thought that was great for whatever reason. We got front row seats. That was awesome. But
Yeah.
but no, it's always great to see. And when
Did
you
you see the
come,
band at all? Did you see Pugwash at all? Did you see us play live? Did you
no,
see us play live?
I didn't. And the ironic, you played in Northampton
Yeah.
years ago. And I was aware of Pugwash, but I hadn't really listened to it at that point.
Okay.
And then, once you had come and gone, that's when I started to really get into it. And I'm like, oh my God, I could kick myself for not seeing this. But the small acoustic sets have been really like a charming way to see you
Yeah.
and to see your music come alive. It's a great way to do it.
Yeah. And just to say, because we've played it many times, I think maybe our first ever American show was in Portland, Maine. So I want to send out a lot of love to a lot of friends
Yeah.
in Portland because of what's gone on the last few days. And just remain strong. It'll happen. The guns will go. It has to happen.
Yeah.
We all pray this side of the world that you sort out your gun laws. It would be great. But we're not going to get involved in it. It's like, it's like me talking about female issues. I have no right. And I'm not saying it, but I'm just sending out love to all the people in Portland, Maine, because we love the place and we've got a lot of friends
Yeah.
there. So, but anyway, look, let's just hope it resolves itself without any more
Yeah.
injury or death. It's been very sad. But anyway, just love to them people and love to you and the podcast, and keep it going, mate, because it's much loved.
Thank you, Thomas. We'll talk soon.
Talk soon, man.
The name of the new Thomas Walsh album is called The Rest Is History. It's on Curation Records. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like it, share it, tell all your friends about it. Be sure to check out all the updates on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And you can also email me at bax@rock102.com. I'd love to know what you think. And thanks again for listening to Baxie's Musical Podcast.